you will use the CFA francs. Yes, I will give you independence, but you are going to use the CFA francs. You are obliged to use the CFA francs, which I am going to back because you need to deposit it in my bank. Man, that is some mafia pimp shit. That is really some mafia stuff.
If you see me in the streets, better holler at me. Seeking for a beat, throw them dollars at me. I don't like defeat, take that away from me. You tryna be like me, you couldn't handle my story. But we gon' let you know, we gon' let you know. We gon' let you know, we gon' let you know.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning in and welcome back once again to another reaction of Mr. J. If you don't know me or if this is your first time coming through, man, I'm Jay, man. I do reaction on a whole lot of content coming out of the world and Mufferland. But recently, I have been reacting on the recent happening on the re-independence of some African states. Now, if you've been following the news, a couple of African states have been saying enough is enough to their colonial master. And we all know that Africa was divided during the 1884 Berlin Conference in Germany, where we were not even present. African leaders were not present, and a bunch of these European imperialists separated Africa. And fast forward the situation at hand today, and it just so happened that these countries that have been kicking out some of these European-backed leaders are countries that speak one language and they belong to one colonial imperialist. Of course, if you don't know who I'm talking about France, man. Now, there's no country with the bad, or I think there is. I think Portugal was really involved with slave trade. But yeah, there's no country that has kept its colonies enslaved, underdeveloped, and filled with a whole lot of bad governance like France. And in the context of checking out these and reacting to some of these coups that have been happening, man, it came to mind that to understand where we are today, we need to go back and understand why we are where we are today. If you don't know where you've been, you definitely do not know where you're heading to. So this vlog is actually going to be talking, we are going to be looking at some of these agreements that were made before the independence of some of these colonies. Mind you, France has 14 colonies in Africa that they are constantly grabbing and manipulating to their own benefit. You feel me? So, but before we get started, man, I want you to help support the channel, man. Click that like button, give us that thumbs up, man. And the more you do that, the algorithm, helps us to get into this new niche that we've decided, man. So, ladies and gentlemen, after independence, since the 1800s, France has been in Africa, and then during the 1960s, some of these African countries, man, most African countries got their independence after 1960s, after fighting and their independence was granted. So after independence, man, 14 French-speaking countries signed agreements with France. Some of these agreements, if you really understand it, and if you look at these 14 countries today and some of these countries that have been kicking against and have been toppling some of these leaders that were backed by France, I think the light bulb will go off in your head. So we are going to walk through some of these agreements so you can understand, you can better see what we mean by imperialism and colonialism. The first agreement that was signed between France and her colonies in Africa was that of colonial debt. Repaying colonial debt. The colonial debt to repay for the benefit of colonialization. Isn't that absurd? Think about it. I come to your continent, I colonize you, you fight for your independence, you gain your independence, and I was like, you know what? And I'd be like, you know what? You have to repay me. Why repay you? France asked all of her colonies to repay France a debt for what? Developing, the cost of developing these colonies. Of course, we all know that wherever imperialists went, they tried to make life comfortable for them. Like they will build roads, they will build hospitals, they will build certain type of things because a portion of their population would move to these colonies and start leaving. So when independence came, like, you know, the Africans were like, man, you gotta leave. And France was like, nah, you need to sign to repay us. Now think about what happened in Haiti, which unfortunately some of these countries and some of these colonies of France are still repaying these debts till today. Now I don't know the details and the figures and how much it was, but I do believe that something like this is going to keep a country poor. Now let's talk about the second agreement. The second agreement is the automatic confiscation of national financial reserves. So I come to your country, I come to your land, I colonize you, I annex you, and then you fight for your independence, and I tell you, well, you know what? I'm going to give you your independence, but this is what you're going to do. You must deposit your financial reserves with my bank. So the more we start, as we're talking about these things, you see that technically France never actually gave independence to these colonies. Now when you ask them to deposit your financial reserves in your bank, you are indirectly telling them that I will control whatever money that you make, anything. Ladies and gentlemen, let me just say this. Since 1961, from 1961 to 2023, African colonies, I will name some of them. We got Burkina Faso, which recently had a coup. Guinea-Bissau recently had a coup. Benin, Central African Republic, Ivory Coast, Mali, which had a coup recently. Niger, that also had a coup. Senegal, Togo, Cameroon, Chad also had a coup. Congo Brazzaville, Equatorial Guinea, and Gabon. Gabon also had a coup. Now think about this. These 14 countries, how much do you think? I don't know the exact figures of how much they deposit at Banque de France. I don't know how much. But think about all of this. That is money just coming in. Like France was just sit and these money come in. No questions asked. That is crazy if you ask me. That is crazy. That is really, really some crazy shit. The governance of monetary policies in these colonies remain in the hands of France. The French government is controlling, well, apart from these other countries that had coup d'etats by young leaders, France is controlling everything. Think about that. Think about that. You are at the stage where you need to do things. Citizens in these countries have to do things, and then France is controlling, which is why they have things like ECOWAS and the CEMAC zone. Man, it's crazy. I don't know about you, but this is crazy. This is really, really crazy. And they do all of these things through a currency called the CFA. Yes, all of these countries use CFA. Now, we've heard about coups left and right, up and down. But the real independence will come when these colonies decide that, you know what? We are no longer going to work with your currency. Which is why we have organizations like BEAC and the BCAO, which is, in other words, man, 85% of African financial reserves are deposited in an operation bank controlled by the French administration. 14 of these countries. That's crazy. The third agreement which some of these countries signed after independence is whatever resource that is found in these countries from 1961 to the future, France has the big brother right. France has the right to be the first to work with these countries. The more we look at these things, man, the more we realize that really wasn't independence. It technically was not independence, because when you start seeing these things and you start understanding What is happening today? You will see that, man, our forefathers messed up a while ago. And those who stood up, they were taken out. The next agreement is that of the priority of French interests and companies in public procurement and public tenders. Now, anything that these colonies wanted to do, any projects, they will first turn to France. Anything. Think about building airports, seaports, infrastructure, major infrastructure. Think about creating employment. All of this stuff. Think about that. They do this through their own companies, which is why in my country, in Cameroon, growing up, there are some companies in Cameroon that are French companies. I'm not going to sit here and start, naming names, but whenever the government had a project to build a seaport, to build a bridge, to build infrastructure, they always give it to these foreign companies who indirectly they benefit. Now think about it this way: you send 85% of your reserve to me. You come to me, you ask for a loan to build a road, and then I tell you, okay, I will give you this loan, but you must use my company. So technically, that money just goes like this and comes back to me with more interest. That is evil, man. That is evil. Another agreement that was signed between France and her colonies after independence is that of the exclusive right to provide military equipment and train military officers of the colonies. So I give you independence, but I'm going to train everybody, military-wise. I'm going to train them. Of course, you see that some of these countries over the years where assassinations were ordered. Some of these people who performed were trained by France. So think about it this way. I fight for my people's right. And my brother, we were trained by France. And because I want something different from him, France will help him kill me. Which is what happened to Burkina Faso's president, Thomas Sankara. This is crazy. And these people signed that stuff, our forefathers, but they didn't have no choice. Which is why now, most of the military bilateral agreements between some of these colonies are with France. You go get trained, you come back, you rise up, and then they use you. That's some crazy business. That's some funny business. The next agreement that we will talk about between France and her colonies was that of the right for France to deploy troops and intervene militarily in the country to defend its interest. Independence is supposed to be you move, you leave, you go. But when you have interest and you think like, look at what is happening today in the Republic of Niger. They don't want to leave. They claim they are defending their interest. And by interest, they mean resources that they are stealing from these colonies. Gold, uranium, bauxite, timber, whatever you can think about. And these colonies agreed. Because back then, they were not visionary enough to see the future. That is crazy, man. It's totally crazy. Defense agreement between your colonial master to intervene in case where they see that something is happening. Man, we might go into details in some other vlog, man. And another agreement that these colonies signed, which is very, very evident, is that of maintaining French as the national language. The official language spoken in these countries, schools, everything. I talked about the policies that the French brought to Africa. That is the policy, social policy of association, assimilation. Kind of like you need to speak like us, dress like us, behave like us, and think like us, and then we will accept you as one of ours. That's a mindset. That was a booby trap. That was hell. But they did not see that. You feel me? That is crazy. Another agreement that these colonies signed after independence was that of currency. You will use the CFA francs. Yes, I will give you independence, but you are going to use the CFA francs. You are obliged to use the CFA francs, which I am going to back because you need to deposit it in my bank. Man, that is some mafia pimp shit. That is really some mafia stuff. It's really, really crazy. Really, really crazy. And following this agreement, after you've used that currency, I need to know every year. You need to tell me how much. That is, you are obligated to send me a balance sheet and a report on all the state reserves. No report, I don't help you with money. My money. I bring my money to you. I put my money in your bank. You oblige me to put my money in your bank. And then you oblige me to tell you how I'm supposed to use this money. Man, slavery never ended. Colonialism never ended for these 14 countries. Which is why some of them are kicking against, and they are, man, people are loving them. Their citizens love exactly what they are doing. You feel me? And another agreement that these folks signed was, you need to renounce military alliance with any other country unless France authorizes you. You see what the Captain Ibrahim Traoré in Burkina Faso just did? Like, he turned towards Russia. Russia, the bloc with, BRICS, Russia, China, you cannot do that. So from 1960 till 2002, 2003, or 2020, where some of these schools started, you cannot. Which is why some of these school leaders from 2020 to 2023, they're like, man, why all these, all these agreements? But that was what France asked them to sign. That was what France asked them to sign. And they signed just to get, to gain independence. Well, it was not independence per se, but they were not able to project into the future. And every leader from 1960 who projected into the future, they were killed, they were assassinated. Or France ordered their own brothers, kind of like what they're trying to do with ECOWAS to get into Niger. We stay back, we push you people, go kill your own brothers so that we can protect our interests in Niger, uranium, gold, and stuff like that. That is crazy. That's very diabolic. Another agreement that these colonies were supposed to sign, to agree to, was that of whatever situation is going on globally, these colonies must ally with France and her allies. You must stand with France. You must send military support, personnel. You must always. Now you will now understand why there's the case of African soldiers fighting in France during the First World and the Second World War. And till date, some of these people's descendants are not even regarded as equal to the French. Think about that. This is crazy. And these people did. These people signed up because there was actually nothing else they could do. Absolutely nothing else they could do. So, ladies and gentlemen, these are some of the agreements that our forefathers had to go through and sign and agree, abide by, which could be called our own republics. And I want you to know, after listening to some of these agreements, leave a comment and let me know, do you think that these 14 countries, they actually gained independence, or it was just a camouflage? You need to let me know, you feel me? Thank you for watching, man, and anything I missed, leave a comment. And to all my people out in Africa, it's all love. Nous sommes ensemble. We are together, you feel me? Yes, I do speak French, but I don't really like speaking French that much because it reminds me, I was one of those woke kids. It reminded me of, imperialism and colonialism, you feel me? From me to you, stay blessed. Peace.
Creation, reaction, God. Big up TRB family. Misterjaay, I see you. I know some artists don't do this. God bless you and your family.